Two U.S. senators on the Intelligence Committee are calling for transparency over the CIA's collecting of vast amounts of information on American citizens. This comes after the CIA declassified some documents at their request. Based on released documents, Senators Ron Wyden and Martin Heinrich warned Thursday that the CIA has a secret bulk collection program to get Americans' data. The senators are also concerned about how the agency searches and handles the information. Last April, the two senators sent a letter to the Director of National Intelligence and the head of the CIA. They were asking for more details about the program for it to be declassified. They said the program operated, quote, outside the statutory framework that Congress and the public believe govern this collection. The CIA released a series of redacted recommendations about the program. Large parts of the documents were blacked out. And West Virginia Senator Shelley Capito has tested positive for the CCP virus. Her office released a statement saying that she is not experiencing any symptoms. Her test results have come after a routine test. Capito is among a group of Congress members that recently experienced breakthrough infections. Others include Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Congressman Tom Malinowski. Nevada becomes the latest state to join a new wave of dropping mask mandates. And President Biden is walking a line between CDC guidelines and Democratic governors racing to change their mask policies this week. Here's Biden speaking with NBC's Lester Holt.
It's hard to say whether they're wrong. Here's the science is saying now that masks work, masks make a difference.
During an interview on Thursday, Biden refrained from criticizing Democratic governors who went against federal masking guidelines. On the same day, Governor Steve Sisolak announced an end to Nevada's statewide mask mandate, saying he doesn't want to let unvaccinated people hold back the rest of the society and the economy. He is the 9th Democratic governor announcing plans this week to drop the mask mandates. Some analysts say it's due to political pressure from the general public in those states. Earlier this week, Dr. Lena Wen, a CNN health expert, also called for an end to government-imposed mask mandates, adding it should be up to the parents to decide whether to mask their children. Republican lawmakers have called for lifting mask mandates for a long time. The CDC hasn't changed its indoor masking guidelines as of yet. And the FDA announced today that it is postponing next week's public meeting to review Pfizer's COVID vaccine for children under 5. They say they want to see more data. The meeting was originally scheduled on February 15th. And Congresswoman Kathy McMorris Rodgers and 70 House Republicans have sent a letter to President Biden and Health Secretary Javier Becerra. They're urging the administration to end the COVID public health emergency. The letter states that the Chinese regime's virus cover-up prompted an emergency response 2 years ago. The congressman now urges Biden to, quote, accept that COVID-19 is endemic, recognize that current heavy-handed government interventions are doing more harm than good, and immediately begin the process by which we unwind the public health emergency so our country can get back to normal. Rodgers opposes vaccine and mask mandates and lockdown policies. She says lockdowns hurt businesses, disrupt children's education, and contribute to more drug abuse and suicides. Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich has just made a significant statement when it comes to the southern border. He says the Constitution gives border state governors the right to act unilaterally without the blessing of the federal government when facing an invasion. Our next guest, Russ Vought, is president at the Center for Renewing America. Russ has been instrumental in providing a constitutional basis for governors to act in the best interest of their states, and we sat down with him earlier. Russ Vought, thank you so much for joining us on the Capitol Report.
Good to have you.
Now, Russ, Arizona AG Mark Brnovich, he just issued a very significant legal opinion regarding the southern border in the United States. Your organization was involved in this. Please tell us how you were involved and what this means.
Sure. Well, very historic action this week. We have a real crisis along our border, record apprehensions. The drug cartels are basically in operational control of our border. Massive amounts of drugs are coming across the southern border. And so from the standpoint of where we are as a country, we're no longer in a position where the country can just wait 3 years till you have a potential for a new administration to come into power. This administration has an ideologically open border policy. They refuse to execute the law. And so what we have said is that we have to have Republican governors doing everything they can, all border governors, but the hope is that Republican governors will do it. We got to use these governors to be able to say, what is the maximum that the Constitution allows for them to do? And we believe that as a result of what constitutes an invasion along the southern border, and we look back at the Constitution and say, what did the founders mean when they looked at an invasion? It wasn't just foreign nation states. It was bandits, gangs, large groups of people that it was hard to get a handle on from a security standpoint. And we've said that constitutes an invasion, that the Constitution then says there are self-help provisions to allow them to defend their people and keep them safe.
Now that's just it. Whose responsibility is it to declare an invasion? Is it a political party? Is it public opinion? It sounds like what you're doing is providing some clarity on this issue.
We are. I mean, I think, politicians have talked about it as being an invasion. The question is, legally, did it meet that test? We've said it did. Mark Brnovich has now said it did, but the responsibility is now on the governor of Arizona and the governor of Texas to be able to say, we're going to articulate that legally we have this responsibility as commanders-in-chief of our state to be able to give rules of engagement to our National Guards or the Department of Public Safety or the sheriffs and say, interdict and remove individuals back to Mexico. And to be able to stop the flow of illegal immigration as a result. And we believe they have that authority. The pressure is squarely on these governors. They're the ones that have to say, all right, the case has been made, the legal authority has been declared, now we actually have to go and execute. Thus far, they have not been willing to do that. Our hope is that the American people rise up in unison and say, we need you to do this. I mean,
objectively, just listening, it just sounds so reasonable, and it does sound like something the American people would truly be, it would cross partisan lines. With that said, is there a scenario that you see where Republican border governors would not take this action, and why would that be?
I think we're winning this debate. We're in the middle of this process right now. I have my hopes that we get to the point where we can convince these two Republican governors who are most likely to take this plan up. But even if Governor Doug Ducey does not do this in Arizona, the candidates who are running to replace him are committing themselves to this position. And so our view is that come next year, this will happen in Arizona. And our view is if it happens in Arizona, it's going to put massive pressure on Texas to do it. And then once those two states, those are two out of the three big areas for illegal immigration, that puts a lot of pressure on the other two states that are led by Democratic governors. I mean, we are a nonpartisan organization. We want to make sure that this happens. And so we are going to where we have the best shot immediately to make the case to governors. But our view is that over time, this is something that will have a domino effect.
Now, Texas Congressman Chip Roy has introduced legislation to designate cartels as terrorist organizations to be able to deal with them as such. What are your thoughts on doing that?
I think it's an important effort. I mean, I think we have to really understand the extent to which the cartels are not just, the types of criminal organizations that have existed for many decades. They really are a national security threat. And I think the extent to which the members of Congress are trying to provide the federal government with new tools to treat that security threat as such is paramount. And how we do it, given the fact that the cartels have such a huge swath of the country, I think will be critical, and we'll want to participate in making sure it's done right. And so that's one of the things we're trying to do, and we're thrilled that members of Congress like Chip Roy are doing that as well.
Russ Vought, thank you.
My pleasure.
The Chinese Communist Party is seeking to form a new world order that will allow it to dominate the world. That's according to Secretary of State Antony Blinken. He says China is becoming more aggressive internationally and more repressive domestically. Blinken is visiting Australia for the Quad Security Dialogue. He told The Australian, a national newspaper in the country, that China's ambition over time is to be the leading military, economic, diplomatic, and political power, not just in the region, but in the world. He's calling on Australia and other like-minded nations to resist this behavior together with the United States. On Thursday, Wisconsin Congressman Brian Steele led 116 Republicans on a letter to President Biden urging action on fentanyl coming from China and across the southern border. Fentanyl's Schedule 1 classification for drugs that have no acceptable medical use and a high potential for abuse is about to expire on February 18th. Steele wants the classification to be permanent. He says fentanyl kills more people aged 18 to 45 than car accidents, suicide, or COVID-19, and that it is 100 times more potent than morphine. Steele also urges Biden to secure the southern border.